Oh yeah, now this gives me nostalgia. So we're only a few days away from Pokémon Day 2026, and boy, that's gonna be a fun one. And as we're expecting a reveal for a big new Pokémon game, it's got me thinking about all the reveal trailers of the past previous games. So why not take a look back, discuss them, and maybe at the end I'll kind of rank them. And I'm sort of doing this to kind of get a feeling of what Pokémon used to do, so that we can sort of know what to expect next week. Right now the ground rules are only the reveal trailer of each game, the very first trailer of each one released, which funnily enough isn't just going to focus on Pokémon Day, it happens year round apparently, and also I'm only going to be discussing the games that had worldwide simultaneous releases, so that means we get to start off with Pokémon X and Y in 2013. And speaking about games that don't even come out on Pokémon Day, this is one of them. It was released in January for some reason. It starts off pretty nicely with a little clip of a 3D Pikachu, which itself builds up hype because this was the first Pokémon game in 3D. Then we transition into some of the gameplay on the Nintendo 3DS, and while there is that one scene featuring a route that was heavily changed, for the most part the gameplay looks pretty nice, being a step up from Black and White, at least in movement. Then we also get the reveal of each starter, showing their names in every language, and then we even get to see gameplay of them. Really, I'm realizing that this is a pretty big trailer. It shows quite a bit, and even though we only get 3 new Pokemon, well 5 if you include the legendaries that are shown off in the animations, it really makes me realize that this trailer showed off a lot for a brand new Pokemon game, given that it came so early in the year. So honestly, I think that starting off pretty strongly and then having a good amount of trailers showing interesting things later on contributed to the hype season of Pokemon X and Y being pretty solid. So in all honesty, yeah, I think this is a really good reveal trailer. But of course at the same time, there's still lots of room for imagination, and we would see much more later on. Some nice animations, getting you excited about the starter Pokemon and the legendaries, and proving the concept of a 3D Pokemon game on a handheld console. So yes, I would say that this is a really good reveal trailer. Then in 2014 we get Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Yes, that's right, the long-awaited Hoenn remakes that people have been joking and memeing about. And then one day at the beginning of May, a 30-second trailer was posted onto Pokemon's YouTube channel, and in all honesty, this just doesn't show all that much. It's a lot of text, some hype music, and then at the very end you get to see the box arts featuring the brand new versions of Groudon and Kyogre. But really there isn't that much here, no gameplay at all. Obviously we would end up seeing that in future trailers, but man, I just find this reveal so crazy because like, yeah, it's so short, it has a good feeling about it. Again, finally delivering the game that fans had been waiting for, but just the way that it's so minimal, it kind of feels like they're just saying, okay, here you go, look, it's coming. So as much as I love these games and the final product, unfortunately I would say this is one of the worst reveal trailers. Then comes Sun and Moon in 2016, which was shown off during the direct presentation on Pokemon Day, and that one is always discussed about because it is a really hype moment. Coming out during the 20th anniversary of Pokemon, most of the trailer is honestly a big montage, utilizing a lot of live action footage of people in real life playing Pokemon in their own lives as they're going through the generations, reminding you just how far things have come from the Game Boy to the 3DS at that point. And yeah, the music is so nice, it feels very international as well, which I think that's also very important, until it finally culminates in another montage as the music continues to build, showing off every generation of Pokemon, until we get to the current year of 2016, and guess what, another little montage, showing a bunch of people at Game Freak working on some sort of game. We get some glimpses here and there with the papers and some of the computer screens, but the way that this one also doesn't even show off any gameplay and just ends with the logos being Pokemon Sun and Moon, which is crazy because of how simple it is, but it still manages to have a higher level of hype. Yeah, we got to see some sneak peeks of development and that served for some great theory crafting, but the fact that yeah, they basically showed nothing about the games aside from the logos is just crazy because this still is one of the greatest Pokemon trailers just because of the presentation. So yeah, definitely a big step up from Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, even though it didn't show all that much. Again, we would end up seeing gameplay with later trailers, but the reveal of Pokemon Sun and Moon was one that you just had to be there for. Then in 2017 we get to Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon, which wasn't as strong. I mean yeah, the game itself is really cool. This reveal trailer was in a Pokemon presentation in the middle of June, and on top of that was actually attached to the very end of the Pokémon Tournament DX trailer, which featured some live action footage, showing this guy going about his life and playing Pokémon Tournament with a bunch of people he meets, before he finally comes home to be with family, giving a gift to his siblings, which ends up being Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon, and then we get to see a little gameplay. So hypothetically you might think it's a step up from Sun and Moon, but in all honesty it just didn't have the same feeling, and the fact that this was a follow-up game to Generation 7 and not the debut, I think that this ends up being one of the weaker trailers. Not necessarily bad or terrible or anything, but again, last year was just a really hard act to follow. But then comes Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, and this one yet again was not posted on Pokemon Day, but was instead attached to, I think it was like an investors meeting or something, and I'm pretty sure they made a tweet like beforehand saying, oh, stay tuned, the reveal of the next Pokemon game is going to be happening soon. Anyway, this being the first Pokemon game on on Nintendo Switch, and also connecting to the wildly popular Pokemon Go. There is actually a lot going on in this trailer. It is a full 3 minutes, but maybe that's because there's the fact they have to sell you on the idea, that being that this is a game meant to connect to Pokemon Go. Also, they needed to show you the features of playing with a single Joy-Con, playing co-op with another person, and then also utilizing the Pokeball Go Plus as a controller itself, or something that can take your Pokemon with you, and also connect to Pokemon Go. And then on top of that, there is also the fact that this is the second Kanto remake, so it's not like there's a lot of stuff they need to hide. They can just kind of show you basically everything. Oh yeah, and then I forget, there's even the tease at the very end for a brand new Pokemon. They just straight up say that too, and it ends up being Meltan. So yeah, weirdly enough, for this being a Pokemon game that was very out of left field, and it was also sort of revealed in a different kind of way. This is a really good trailer. It shows you a whole lot about the game, and in a way kind of gets you excited. I think a lot of core Pokemon fans were definitely tired of Kanto even at that point, and not everybody was excited to play a game so focused on Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee and using the Joy-Cons. But for what it is, this is kind of a really exciting trailer. I think the way that it utilizes a lot of the live action portions connecting to the actual gameplay is a great way to give you the sense of community, especially as it was still sort of riding off the coattails of Pokemon Go and the 20th anniversary 2 years earlier. I don't know, man, am I crazy for giving this trailer a lot of praise? I forget, do we like Pokemon Let's Go? Then in 2019, we get Pokemon Sword and Shield, this one actually happening on Pokemon Day alongside the Pokemon Presents. And I think that this is a really good one. Sure, it isn't the first Pokemon game on Nintendo Switch, but it is the first one to sort of build its own style a little more and seem a bit more expansive, because yeah, we had already had Pokemon Let's Go at that point, and I think that definitely Pokemon fans were ready for the next new adventure in the traditional Pokemon style. And I think that the gameplay they show off here is really great as well, showing off some of the new areas, most of them early on in the game, and giving you an idea of how the environments look, and the movement in 3D also looks, getting a little glimpse at the battles as well, and also on top of that, confirming gyms were going to be making their return. The trailer then transitions into a cinematic showing off all of the starter Pokemon, which were not shown off in the gameplay before, but instead I think this was a cute idea to show how they all interact with each other. Even though I think the overall animation isn't like super impressive or anything, it was still sort of a nice way of doing it, though I wish that maybe this would have been incorporated into the main part of the trailer as well. But overall, I think that this was a pretty good trailer. Weirdly enough, for their reputation, Pokemon Sword and Shield would have some bangers, and at this point we should probably really acknowledge that because this one was actually part of the Pokemon Day presentation and actually showed off some gameplay, there was an additional section in the next part of the livestream that went a little deeper into the game, or at least in terms of details, and also the websites and social media was updated that day as well. So this one really just kind of came together to give us a lot of information and give us a good look at the next new Pokemon adventure. And now we've made it to 2021 with Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Yet another long-awaited remake. This one has a really nice start, starting off with some footage of the original Nintendo DS and showing gameplay of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, really building up that nostalgia before the inevitable transition into the actual gameplay of what the game would be. Oh my gosh, it's still so hilarious. I'm not necessarily making fun of the game. I know the final product at least looked better, but just the contrast of the transition, because it's building this up and you think, oh boy, it's gonna finally be the Sinnoh remakes in the Sword and Shield style, and then they just hit you with a Chibi Dawn jump scare. I mean, hypothetically, once the gameplay starts going, it gives you a good idea at least of generally what it's gonna look like, before they fix the lighting and the filters of the final release. And for being something totally unexpected, I at least think this is an okay trailer. Again, maybe the nostalgic portion at the very beginning is doing a lot of heavy lifting. But then there is also the fact that the very next trailer shown off in that presentation was for Pokémon Legends Arceus. That's right, this year we got a 2-for-1. While the last one was remembered for being a meme, this one was remembered for some better reasons. There was a nice little cinematic at the very beginning to set the scene, letting us know that there's going to be a story taking place in Pokemon's past, and then the transition into the gameplay is done so well, just, sort of a Breath of the Wild copy moment where they show you the character looking out into the open fields. Sure, aside from that, I think that this is definitely the tone and the visuals that you needed to show off. For one thing, yes, it really does contrast with the previous Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl trailer, but in the best way possible to really show you how this game stands out from traditional Pokemon. You get a really good look at the trainer characters, generally how the Pokemon are going to be moving around and behaving, and also a little hint at the actual gameplay, which is going to be something brand new and unique in terms of how you catch Pokemon and battle with them, and then rounding things off by showing you the actual starters, which was another big surprise because they weren't anything brand new, but just the fact that these were all Pokemon non-native to Sinnoh just really got people thinking, before of course finally ending with the title and showing you Arceus there in another cinematic. And yes, this one being part of a Pokemon Presents also got some information animation afterwards to kind of go into some more details, just a mix of different elements that they use and the tone that they set up at the beginning before going into gameplay, which even though it isn't finished, gives you a good idea of what the adventure is going to be like, and the game itself was just a really genuine surprise. Then we get to 2022 with Pokémon Scarlet and Violet, and the beginning of the trailer starts off with some live action cinematics, which people just did not know what was going on at first. A lot of people think that this might have been some sort of tease of another Detective Pikachu movie. That is, at least until we saw the Game Freak sign in the trailer, before revealing like the secret back room that the Night Guard finds himself in, and then things just go all weird and wonky and supernatural. I still don't know exactly what this means, but the point is it goes into some in-game footage, not necessarily gameplay, just a lot of shots of the overworld and the environment. So it's so funny just how like there are some portions where Pokemon are just absent, and obviously stuff like the visuals and the frame rate. We do actually get to see footage of Pokemon walking and moving around, and I think it is a plus that we get to see some of the Pokemon have much more detail than we're used to. But I think really the main draw that they're presenting here is just how big and expansive the world is supposed to be, which you sort of do get an idea of that. Oh yeah, and the trailer also rounds off by showing you the protagonist and then the starter Pokemon, not in gameplay, just their images here. So I do think that this is a fine trailer, but weirdly enough, for a brand new region, a brand new generation, I don't think it was as strong as Pokemon Sword and Shields, because that one just kind of showed a little more of a complete product. So I think that Scarlet and Violet's reveal trailer was okay, but I don't think there wasn't all that much that really wowed you. Again, sure, they showed you the large areas, but I think just showing them blankly as they are rather than having the player character going through them does kind of hold it back. And now finally we get to the reveal trailer of the latest Pokemon game, Pokémon Legends ZA in 2024. Oh yeah, that's right, this came out a long time ago, which is one of the longest time periods between a reveal of a Pokemon game and the release date, and as such, this is one that has absolutely no gameplay. There's some really nice visuals at least, and it kind of keeps you guessing going along, not necessarily telling you where this is supposed to be taking place right away, but more so giving you hints and clues in some of the Pokemon that you see, before zooming out and showing you all a prison tower, letting you know that yes, this is going to be a Kalos remake, and there's a really nice callback with a Fletchinder flying around. But I will say that the final title drop is so good, making you think that, oh yeah, it's Pokemon Legends Z, but then revealing that there's the A2 and ZA, like, ooh, what does that mean? While once again being a trailer that only shows you the logo, it at least is kind of carried by the animation, but I do think that this one gets a pass because of how far in advance it was revealed. Because yeah, if the game was supposed to be coming out in more than a year, I definitely hope they wouldn't show any gameplay because it definitely isn't ready. But I think what really hurt the most is just something that you see in retrospect, because after this trailer it would take basically another year to see anything of this game at all. There were pretty much no updates for the entirety of 2024. So I think it is an okay trailer, but again, for being one that doesn't give you any gameplay or even give you any idea of what the gameplay is going to be like, I would say that when you stack it up against the others, it's not a very good trailer. At this point, maybe we should just count the one that came out a year later, but the problem is that wasn't the reveal trailer, that was the second trailer. So I'm just gonna have to rank Pokemon Legends ZA pretty low. Anyway, that was a long video, but I hope you enjoyed it. A fun little discussion and look back at some of the trailers in Pokemon, you know, the reveal trailers of Pokemon. So I'm really looking forward to what we're gonna be getting this Pokemon Day, if we are getting a brand new Pokemon game, and fingers crossed. Oh yeah, also, and if I do include a tier list or ranking, this is where I would put them all. I'll do that in post, but for now I think that served a good way to set the bar. Will the reveal of Pokemon Day 2026 be above or below it? Only time will tell, and by time I mean like a week. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Which modern Pokemon game do you think had the best reveal trailer? And what are you looking forward to see this year in 2026? Anyway, I should get back to sleeping and preparing to make sure that I wake up on time to react to it, because oh boy, it's gonna be a fun one. Thanking every channel member for your continued support, including the great Gators, Miranda Ray, That's Ven, Impbrush, Mara, Jaza, Justin Dowes, Alex with Shiny Hunts, Koi13, Cemetery Hill, Cheez-It62, GatorKid509, TF, Mathaclog947, Taijirai, Phantom, and Quago. If you'd like to support, see your name here, get access to emotes for comments, live streams, sometimes early videos, and our members Discord server, as well as the podcast, you can become a channel member today. You can also follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky as well for more memes. Anyway, this is GatorX, and I will catch you all later.
You can discover new Pokémon and explore a world beyond your own in Pokémon Sun and Pokémon Moon on Nintendo 3DS. Games rated everyone.